They continue to nurture and nourish our souls through music, week in and week out. Thank you. Thank you. Guidelines for a Master. Individuality and Personality, Part 2. On last week, we said that there are two basic attitudes of mind that make up our identity. And those attitudes of mind, we said, are Did y'all spend all day at the Chosen Few picnic? Let's try it one more time. Let's try it. Like, even if you weren't here, like I laid it right there for you. Like, even if you weren't here to actually hear it, when I started by, you know what? I don't even have a whole lot of time to do that. Let me just get to the lesson. On last week, we said that there are two basic attitudes of mind that make up our identity. And from your bulletin, under where it says guidelines for a master, those two basic attitudes of mind are... Don't tell me you ain't bad. Y'all are on it. We said that as metaphysical Christians, we recognize that both the personality and the individuality have a place, but as those of us who are skilled in the spiritual science of being, we recognize that we want to, ought to, need to be in alignment with the God aspect of ourselves, and then to let that alignment inform, enfold, and express through the other aspect or attitude or mind of being. We said that last week, yes? And so we talked about how we can get lost in the various roles that we play in and through our personality. We talked about how sometimes as mothers and fathers, or sometimes as sons and daughters, or sometimes as employers and employees, or as leaders and managers, we get lost in the various roles that we put on, and we begin to act out of this dispensation that we think is us, but we come to realize that it's not truly us, it's just the role that we've been playing. And sometimes we said we don't even have the script to effectively execute the role we're playing. On last week, we said that the personality is the sum total of the characteristics that we have personalized as distinct to ourselves. We remember John the Baptist saying that I must decrease so that the Christ presence, the Christ awareness, the Christ image of me can increase. On last week, we said that the personality is the unreal, it's the mortal, it's the part of us that's governed by the selfish. We even talked about Denzel Washington a little bit. And that's where we left off at. And so today we pick up at personality as a veil or mask. And from your bulletin, let's take it together. Personality is a veil or mask worn by man that conceals the real, the spiritual I am. Some psychologists will tell you that the personality is a pattern of behavior that makes us think that we are distinct. They will tell you that the personality is that which leads us to act consistently and predictably over a long period of time. Why is that important? That's important because if my personality is an indication of the pattern or the arrangement and repetition of my behavior, and if in my personality, or if one of the characteristics of the mask that I wear is that of victim, then I will begin to behave in ways that are consistent and predictable and indicative of the kind of experience that a victim will consistently have. And it doesn't matter how much you come to a place and they tell you that you are a victor over circumstance. If in my personality there is this characteristic flaw that leads me to believe I am a victim, I will find people to victimize me. They don't even have to be looking to victimize me. But because my behavior is predictable and consistent, I walk around creating experiences. And from those experiences, I find myself conflicted, because when I go to class, they tell me that I'm this. And my experience is suggesting that I'm that. It might simply be a personality flaw. Ooh. It might just be that the patterns that I have set up as a result of my personality are leading me to act in ways that are consistent and predictable, and I do it over a long period of time. But then we say that the responsibility of the child of God is right thinking and right feeling and right words and right. So then, the metaphysical Christian, if you are going to truly demonstrate out of the law of understanding, then you have to get in alignment those things which are out of alignment. So if the mask or the persona that you're presenting to yourself is hiding from you your true self, then you've got to push through the mask or take off the mask so that you can stop hiding from yourself, so that the true you can get rooted and you can stand tall and be what you were created to be. Because the mask conceals the real. Oh, that's good right there. The personality conceals the spiritual. Watch this. Whenever you hide a thing, especially when you hide it in your soul, say hide it in your soul. See, sometimes we hide things in our soul and we think we are hiding them from others, but when we hide them from others, we sometimes become blind to them ourselves. So you can hide something from somebody outside of you, but then become blind to it yourself, even though it is within you. And so when you become blind to a thing that is within you, you can move like it's not in you, but it's in you. You're trying to hide it from me, but you're blind to it, but it keeps showing up to other people in other places. This is your personality. This is the mask. And so when we get locked in the role, and when we start to take on the attributes of the character that we're trying to play, we lose sight of the true you. So then how do we cultivate, say cultivate. How do we cultivate personality? For those of you who do earth stuff. just keep moving. I'm going to keep moving like I didn't even say it. How do you cultivate? I'm not going to even use the illustration. I had an illustration that was in my mind. I'm going to keep moving right past it like I didn't even say it. We cultivate the personality, and in the personality, let me add this. Personality is not bad. Repeat after me. Personality is not bad. Personality just needs to be in its rightful place. So, but we cultivate personality. And in our personality live pride. In our personality lives fear. In our personality lives criticism. In the personality lives all manner of selfishness. So how do we then begin to cultivate the personality? We cultivate the personality by listening to and reacting to the voices that are outside of ourselves, and we do it at the level in which the voice is presented to us. Oh, that's good right there. I'm gonna say it one more time. We cultivate the personality when we listen to the voices and react or respond to the voices, particularly when we do it at the level in which the voice is presented to us. What do I mean? I mean that many of us respond to the personality of others through our own personality. So we become Me Too's. So when someone shares an opinion or criticism about you and you become hyper defensive, that is your personality reminding that you are a Me Too. Rather than recognizing that it does not matter what they say, we tie ourselves into a point of engagement about something that somebody else thinks that has nothing to do with the true you. That's your personality that's upset when they tell you those shoes look funny. That's your personality that gets upset when they tell you they don't like your hair and you spent 4 hours in the salon getting it done. That's your personality that starts to rise up with you when you standing in line and the person in front of you has 22 items in the 10 item or less line. And they start rummaging through their bag or their pockets to find the coupon. And your personality all the while, you can feel it rising. And after they find the coupon, only after they find the coupon, it's not until after they find the coupon that they start looking for their cash. And your personality is rising. That's when you know you are a Me Too. Because what you're ready to do is you're ready to meet them at the level at which their personality is presenting to you. But you do recognize that that's an opportunity to pray for them. Oh, I slid that one right in there for you. You wasn't ready for that one. You wasn't ready to pray for them. How do we cultivate the personality? We cultivate the personality by being governed by the selfish motives instead of by being governed by the highest that is within us. See, when you hide in your personality, you can become blind to your spirituality. When you hide things from your personality from people outside of you, or when you make up your personality to impress people outside of you, what you are not paying attention to is the spiritual you. And so the spiritual you starts to have a quieter voice in the conversation of what's going to happen in your soul. And if God whispers through the still small voice, and the still small voice is being quieted by the loud voice of the consternation of the personality, then you will miss your blessing in the moment. Personality is Adam. Personality is Adam. Adam is the man that's formed by the Jehovah and commanded to develop individuality in Eden, an environment of all potential possibilities. Adam, your Adam thought, say Adam thought. Your Adam thought, still talking about now how you not only cultivate, but offset the personality. You with me? Your Adam thought, or the first thought, is an important thought in any experience with your personality, particularly when your personality confronts someone else's personality. Because if the Adam thought is the first thought, then the first thought will likewise attract an Eve feeling. So if when my personality is encountered by your personality, if the first Adam thought is a thought that is in alignment not with my personality, but with the whole possibility and potentiality that exists in our encounter, if I can bring myself to the place where I see God in you, then you can present me with your personality, but I can see the presence and power of God shining through you. Not because that's your intention, but because it's my intention. I'm not tripping on what you're trying to show me. What I'm tripping on is what it is I'm trying to see. And so if you show me your personality, and I am insistent upon seeing the Christ in you, and so if my Adam thought, if the first thought that I think is not, she better get out of my face before I go off, if that is not the first thought, but if instead the first thought is Christ in me, my hope of glory, then watch what comes alongside the first thought. According to the Genesis narrative, the Eve feeling comes from the Adam thought. So if you want to grow past the personality that you are demonstrating, when you have a first thought, you want to either catch that first thought or change the first thought so that the first feeling that you have does not begin to produce what is consistent with the first thought. If you want to learn how to stop going off, you have to learn how to train your mind. Because since there are blind, hidden aspects of your personality, you ever said, I would have never did that. Well, I don't know why they did that. I would have never said that. Until you were in the mix of it. You found yourself saying and doing some stuff that you thought. Right. I'm with the right people then. Right. Hosea said, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because they reject the knowledge, they have forgotten the law of God. And so we can never be so involved with our personality that we forget the law of mind and action. Man, you should write that down. I hope you wrote that down. I can't say it again. I got to keep moving. right? Because the primary cause of suffering is forgetfulness. See, we forget that we are divine by nature. We forget that we are sons and daughters of God. We forget that we are spiritual beings. We forget that as spiritual beings, we have authority and dominion over our thoughts and feelings, and you should never abdicate your authority and dominion just because your personality is present. And so then, there is this other attitude of mind that makes up our individuality, or that makes up our identity, and it is our individuality. Now, let me just say this right here parenthetically. Individuality should not be confused with individualism. Individualism is a political philosophy or an ideology or a social outlook that emphasizes the worth and the sovereignty of the individual. So people who have a leaning toward individualism, you might hear them say stuff like, I'm just going to do my own thing. In the midst of our thing, they say they're going to do their own thing. That's individualism. That's not to be confused with individuality. Are you with me? Because from your bulletin, from your insert, we say individuality, take it with me, that which characterizes one as a distinct entity or particular manifestation of divine principle. Individuality is eternal, and it can never be destroyed. Let's take the second statement together also. Individuality is the real, true self, that which is undivided from God, our spiritual identity, the God part of us. So I want you to take your pen or your pencil, if you have one, and on your insert, put like 7 or 8 or 9 lines under undivided. And then I want you to write a circle around this word here, undivided. And then I want you to put a square around this word here, undivided, because it's this sense of divisiveness that begins to get in the way of spiritual beings when spiritual beings start to think that they can somehow be separated from the very essence out of which they have been created. It's utter and total nonsense. As spiritual beings, listen. You don't ever have to trip. As a spiritual being, all that you can be is what you are. It doesn't matter that you have a bodysuit on or an earth suit on. It doesn't even matter that you have a soul, because at the core of those is your spirit, your spirituality. And so even if you are demonstrating no spirituality or no spiritual consciousness, you are still a spiritual being. It cannot change. You can't change it. God can't change it. The world can't give it to you, and the world can't take it away. It's who and what you are. But you know where we get it tripping at, right? You know where we get it twisted at. We invest so much in this. This is what we see. This is how we think we relate to people. This is the medium by which we think we are supposed to move most consistently. But you are a spiritual being living in a spiritual universe that's governed by spiritual law. I get that which is informing or impressing the senses is directly related to the body, but you have to get beyond your senses so that you can connect to your spirituality. You are a spiritual being. And so individuality is the term that is used to denote the real, true you. And the more of God that comes into manifestation through the real, true you, the less personalized you become. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it when I share stuff about myself with people. And they say, I would have never guessed that. Right? Like when I tell them about my adventures as a fake gangster. Oh yeah, I was totally toy gangster. I was not. I've been around gangsters, and I know I wasn't one. But when, because of the evolution of consciousness, right, the trace of that aspect of the personality is not apparent, unless, of course, somebody mess around and take me back. And then that aspect of the personality emerges after some time, probably with a lot less prayer, and then it's on and popping. And we don't know how to get it unpopped. Once it's popped, it's hard to get it unpopped. Right? But the good news is that LB, like, it's you can't detect it. It's imperceptible. What? My DI, it's right here. Blanche said, what I see in others is a reflection of the imperceptible concepts and beliefs hidden in me. The equivalent is buried deep within my subconscious, attracting people and experiences that show me those subtle thoughts and hidden beliefs about myself. Let me just give you one more. Can I give you just one more me thing? When I was taking classes at the University of Chicago, looking around class and, just taking a look at who was around. And after class, a friend called. And the friend said, how was class? I'm like, class was good. He said, but a lot of nerds in that class. I said, I'm looking around and I just see nerds everywhere. And then my friend says, you do realize that while you were looking around, assessing who was in the class, there was somebody looking in your direction and saying, he has a nice haircut for a nerd. He says, what do you think that makes you? I said, no. I spent my whole life doing average in school just so people would not know that I had a little bit of sense. She said, oh no, you may as well just come to terms with it. If you look around the class and that's all you see, it's because that's what you are. You are. And then to really sort of burn it home and bring it home to me, when I was in my doctoral program, we would take pictures at the end of the summer else. This is actually my first summer here in 3 years, in June, around this time. We would take the picture and I would bring the picture home. And with no provocation, the first picture I brought home, I let Sylvia see it. And she said, look at all y'all And so even those things that we sometimes hide and pretend to be blind to, it doesn't mean that people don't see you when you are a, y'all don't have to say it so loud. So how do we allow more of the individuality to come forth? Through prayer, through meditation, through sitting in the silence. This is how we begin to allow more of the individuality to come forth through our consistent practice with prayer, meditation, and sitting in the silence. We begin to realize that when we sit in the silence and when we meditate and we pray, we find ourselves getting to a place where we can trust the Lord with all of our heart and lean not on our own understanding and acknowledge him in all of our ways, and then he begins to direct our path. Our insert says that individuality is Jehovah, the ideal man, the image likeness of Elohim, the universal creative mind. And so one's individuality is the part of the identity that never changes. It is the God self. It is that which distinguishes us in personality, but connects us in truth and in spirit. And we have to allow ourselves to get to the place where we come back to that. How do we cultivate the individuality? I'm so glad you asked, because we every now and again have the prodigal son experience, where because of our personality and because of what we think we are entitled to, we want what we want when we want it. And sometimes we find that the things that we want as a matter of extension of our personality, we're not yet ready for. Oh. And when we move about from the comfort spot, and when we go out into the world ready to proclaim that the personality is here and it has its baubles, but we get to a place where we lose ourselves in our personality. And we find ourselves hanging out in situations that don't truly suit who we are. And so then we have a point where we come to ourselves. And it doesn't matter how you come to yourself or where you are when you come to yourself. The only thing that really truly matters is that you come to yourself. The prodigal son found himself amongst the pigs, looking around, trying to figure out, how in the world did I get here? How did I attract these relationships to myself? So much so I'm not even hanging out with people, I'm hanging out with the animals. But he came to himself. He got clear about his individuality. And he said, I need to go back home to my father's house. And once he got clear, he got up and he got moving. And as he was getting clear, he decided what he would say to himself. When your personality emerges, you want to know what you're going to say to yourself. When you start to get full of yourself, you got to know what you're going to say to yourself. When you start to feel yourself, you got to know what you're going to say to yourself. Well, don't say that one. I don't want to give you that one. It might not translate quite right. Let's take the next point. Individuality is what we really are when we think in our unlimited spiritual consciousness. Individuality is, in another, not only produces admiration, but it helps to raise that individual up to their true selves. So as the true Christ self emerges, personality decreases. The real self, the individuality, begins to express. And so again, we hear the words, from John saying, he must increase, but I must decrease. How do you cultivate your individuality? By listening to the still small voice. You cultivate your individuality by listening to the still small voice in your prayer, in your meditation, in your silent listening. Avail yourself to the whispering of the still small voice. And then, even if the words that you hear don't make sense, trust them. Even if you don't see clear to what you are being told in your soul, trust him. Even if at the moment that it is being presented to you, there does not appear to be a way for that to become manifest, trust him. Even if your life experience suggests that you are not worthy of it, trust him. Even if the people around you can't see it in you or can't see it for you, trust him. Because it is in him that we live, move, and have our being as spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe governed by spiritual law. Your personality has a place, but it's not above your individuality. Get those in alignment and then get moving with how God is moving you. God bless you.